Alright guys, so in this lesson I wanted to create kind of a children's book style bear illustration. And I created a rough sketch here of kind of what I was thinking. It's just going to be a bear. I was thinking he's kind of wearing this striped French style shirt. And when it comes to layers and shading, everything should be pretty simple. I'll go ahead and provide the Procreate file in the description below, and it will include this sketch. So I would suggest opening up the file and finding this sketch and then just deleting all the other layers and then following along with this video. So right off the bat, I'm kind of thinking this is going to be just a brown bear, pretty standard colors, maybe a background color that I think is light but kind of goes along with it, maybe something a little yellow, and then I'm imagining kind of a white and blue striped shirt. We might change things as we go along, but let's see how that works. So I don't really need to create perfect lines out of this sketch like I did in the last video with the coffee cup. I'm not going to worry about making things perfectly symmetrical. I think this is fine. So I'm going to go ahead and just start laying in the basic shapes. So I can start by maybe lowering the opacity of my sketch layer a bit. I'm going to turn this to multiply as well. That way, whatever layers I put underneath it, only the dark sketch lines will go over top of it, and the white will be ignored. So we changed it to multiply, and now let's go in here again and just lower the opacity a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and try to choose a color that I think might work well for the base of the bear. Just kind of some dark, kind of brownish color. And I'm just looking at the top right here while I adjust these sliders. Maybe something like that. Let's see how this works. And then for my brush, you can go ahead and go to calligraphy and choose monoline. And just go into it and make sure, if you go to stabilization, just make sure streamline amount is set to max, which I think it is by default. That'll just give us much smoother lines. Then we're going to go ahead and make a new layer. Let's drag it underneath of our sketch layer, so that way our sketch is always on top. I'll make this brush a little bit bigger. So let's just do the basic shape right now. You see, I'll probably do this a few times until I get it just right, until I'm happy with it. I think that works pretty well. Maybe I can round out this part a little bit more. Let me go ahead and fill in the shape with a solid color, again by just dragging from the top right here inside and let go. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same color for the ears, but I'm going to put them on a layer beneath this one, just in case I want to later on make tweaks to the ears, change the position, or add some separation between the two. It's just always good to kind of put separate elements on different layers. So I'm going to go ahead and create kind of a full circle here, and then hold down at the end so it turns into a smooth shape, and then let go. And now I can fill that in. Same thing for this ear. Let's go ahead and pick a background color. I don't think the white is going to quite work here. It's a little too bright for me. So maybe if I go a little bit more yellow, it'll kind of meet in the middle. Let's try something like this. I think that works. It's just a little bit easier on the eyes, I think. Now I'd imagine he's going to have pretty much a black nose, black eyes, black eyebrows, and then maybe like a very light brown kind of snout here. So we can go ahead and do this snout first. So I'm going to do this on a new layer on top of everything, but still underneath our sketch layer. So I'm just going to do a little oval shape here and then hold down at the end just to make it nice and smooth. And then go ahead and fill it in. And then I'll go ahead and do the nose on top of that. I'm just going to choose pure black. So we'll make a new layer on top. Let's zoom in here a little bit. Let me grab this oval real quick and just adjust it a little bit using the transform tool. I'm going to click this, change it to freeform, and now I can kind of squish in the left side a little bit. Just try to match it up a little bit better to my sketch. Now on a new layer, right above this light brown layer, we'll go ahead and put in our nose here. Just going to hold down right here to make it a perfectly smooth shape, and then I'll finish off the rest. You can do it in stages like this. You don't have to do it all in one go. And you saw what I did there. If it's not perfectly smooth on the outside, if it's not the way I like it, you can just kind of keep adding to the outside just with new strokes. So I'm happy with this. Let's go ahead and fill it in. And I think I want to maybe scoot it up a little bit with the transform tool. So I'm just going to click a few times, kind of move it up. And it's fine that it's not perfect. I mean, I know that this top right corner is a little different than this top left corner, and that's okay. I think a little bit of asymmetry is kind of nice on characters. And then on a layer right beneath this black nose, we're going to add in a new layer with this black line here and a black mouth line. So I created a new layer there, dragged it beneath the black nose. So for these kind of lines, I like to vary the thickness a bit. So a good brush for that is if you come to calligraphy script, and it just allows you to kind of adjust the thickness of the line depending on the pen pressure. So imagining this as kind of a thicker line that becomes thinner toward the bottom. Something kind of like that. And then same thing for the mouth. We can use the same kind of brush here. I'm going to create a little shape and hold down at the end. I think something like that works. Then we can do a new layer on top of everything for the eyes and the eyebrows. So again, we're still beneath the sketch layer. We'll do a new layer. And then let's go back to our monoline brush. And now we can draw a circle and hold down at the end and then press a finger on, if you remember, to make it a perfect circle. We can fill that in. And then just to make sure the eyes are exactly the same size, I can go ahead and duplicate this by swiping left on the eye layer, hit duplicate. And then I can do the transform tool. And then just to make sure it transfers perfectly to the left without going up or down, just make sure under snapping that magnetics is on. And now when we drag to the left, it should stay on the same horizontal line. And then we don't really need these eyes to be on separate layers, so we can combine them into one just by pinching them together. And then let's go ahead and do the eyebrows on a new layer above that. So I'm thinking some kind of like painterly strokes, some kind of sketchy lines. So let's go to painting. And we can try this turpentine one. Let's see how that looks. I think that's pretty good. I think that's kind of what I'm going for. So the brush size I'm using is, it's at 3% right now. So we can go ahead and just make some strokes. Let's try that again. Maybe this right one needs to be a little bit thicker. That feels pretty good. And then for the ears, I want some kind of little pink interior circle here. So let's choose a color for that. And we can do this right above the ear layer. So let me find my ears. You know what? It looks like I put my ears on the same layer as my background, which is not ideal because I have no control over them now. So let me go ahead and I'm going to use my color picker here to select the background color. And I'm on this background layer, and I can just go ahead and select any brush. Let me go back to the monoline brush. Let me just pretty much erase the ears by just painting over it with the background color. And this is kind of the beauty of digital art, is you can just kind of undo things like this. Then I'm going to use the color picker again, choose the bear color. And this time I'll go ahead and do it properly, and I'll create a layer above the background and put my ears on there again. And now above the ear layer, I'm going to go ahead and do that pink color. And let's go ahead and choose a pink ear color again. So now we're on a layer right above the ears. We can just do a little circle for the pink part. Same thing over here. So that's feeling pretty good so far. I'm going to go ahead and rough in just the basic colors for this shirt. And you'll notice I haven't added any shading yet. I like to kind of just go through and add the basic shapes and colors first. So I'm going to grab a color that's maybe not pure white, just because I want to leave a little bit of room to add white if I want to, like on the edges. So I'm going to do kind of a very light gray here. And I'm imagining that there's going to be like kind of a collar here at the top. It's just kind of separate from the rest of the shirt that just sticks out a little bit on the left and right. So I'm going to go ahead and create a layer on top of everything again and beneath our sketch layer. I'm going to draw a line and just hold down at the end again to make it kind of perfect. And then we can hit this edit shape at the top here to kind of move around the points a little bit. Get it right where we want. Okay, and then to get out of that, you can just click on your brush. And let's go ahead and do the top line. Again, we'll create our shape and then hold down at the very end to make it smooth. And then we can do edit shape and zoom in here and kind of get it a little more perfect. Then we can click on our brush and go ahead and close off the shape here. Make it a little bit of a rounded edge. Then we can fill this in. So this is kind of our collar. And then I'm going to do the same exact color right beneath the collar. Just create kind of the base of the rest of the shirt here. So we got the left side, let's do the right side. And then we just gotta close off the shape, because if we try to fill this in, it's gonna fill in everything. And that's because if we hide the collar, we really just have two lines here on the left and right. So we want to close off this shape. So let's just go ahead and paint, and we can just paint beneath the collar shape. So now if we hide the collar again, you'll see now we have a closed shape. And it doesn't matter if it's kind of messed up like this, because again, this is all going to sit behind the collar and we're not going to see it. All right, let's go ahead and fill this in. Oh, and you'll see it's filling in everything. So let's go ahead and hide the collar and see what's happening here. Look for any open spaces. You'll see it's not completely closed. There's just a little bit of open area here. So we just want to close that off. So now when we fill it in, it should work. And now I want to go ahead and paint in these blue stripes on the shirt. So let's pick a nice blue color. Maybe a little bit of a dark blue. So now we're going to go to our main shirt layer here. And we're going to create a layer right above it and turn that into a clipping mask. So now whatever we paint will stay within that shirt. So we can do our stripes this way. So let's go ahead and choose a pretty thick size here. And I actually want my stripes, I think, to be a little thicker. So what we can do is come into the brush settings by clicking on the brush. And we can come to properties. And now we can change maximum size up a bit. So now we have a much greater range. We can create actually a really thick brush. We don't need it that big, obviously, but let's see. I think something like this works. So we have our first stripe. Let's go ahead and do the second one. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Now we can go ahead and start laying in some shading. So I like to start with kind of the bigger shapes and work my way down to the smaller ones. So let's just start with the basic shading of the main bear shape here. So I'm imagining maybe the light's coming from the left side here. So the right's going to go a little bit darker, and then the left is going to go a little bit lighter. So I'm going to use my color picker, select the bear color, and then I'm going to choose kind of a darker version of this for the shadows. And then for the shading, I'm going to use my custom texture brush here. It's called Pebbles. And I'll go ahead and put a link in the description for a free download of this. So we're going to go ahead and go to our main shape that we want to paint on, create a layer right above it, turn that into a clipping mask. And you'll see kind of what my shading brush does here. Creates a nice kind of textured effect. And we're going to use this just to paint in some slight shadow basically on the right side. So with just really light pressure, I'm going to go ahead and add some darkness to the right side. I'm going to slowly lift up and create less and less pressure as I move to the left side here. So we're kind of getting this gradient effect where it's a little darker on the right and then it slowly gets lighter and lighter. And now you'll notice with the colors here, I'm kind of just going off of feel and things that are kind of semi-related. I'm not sticking with the whole color theory thing I was showing before. While that is a great approach. Sometimes I like to just kind of eyeball things and go with what feels right, and just kind of use semi-related colors and maybe just one separate color that pops. In this case, it's the blue that's kind of the outlier, but the browns and the yellows and this pink, they kind of all go together pretty well. And this blue is just more of an accent, but this blue could really be any color that you want. So now for the lighter color, again, I'm going to choose my main bear color here, and then choose a kind of light color that goes with this. And I'll do this on a new layer. Again, clipping mask. So we have our second clipping mask now that'll be on top of this main bear shape. And I like to keep my kind of shadows and lighting a little separate in case I want to change one or the other. So same thing, I'm just going to go ahead and start with a light pressure and then slowly work my way to the right while doing less and less pressure. Maybe there's some light kind of hitting the top of the head here, so that can go a little bit lighter. You know, after looking at this, I think I want to go a little bit bigger on my texture brush. It'll just make it a little bit more interesting to look at. So I'm going to go ahead and erase the light colored one and come to my dark colored one and do my 3-finger erase. So I'm just putting 3 fingers down and swiping to erase it. I'm going to choose my bear color again and choose a dark color again. Let's see if this works a little bit better. I think it's a little more interesting to look at. And then again, we're going to do a layer right above that, clipping mask, and then choose our lighter color. Go ahead and rough this in. Maybe some light again is hitting the top of the head here. I think maybe I extended a little too far in, so I can just select kind of a soft airbrush, maybe as for my eraser here. Just erase a little bit of it in the middle here. Then maybe on this light shading pass, I can also select a slightly brighter version of that. Let's go ahead and add just a little bit of rim light here to the shadow side. Maybe we could just add a little bit brighter version even on the very left. I think at this point I can go ahead and hide my sketch layer. Now let's go ahead and come to this light brown nose here. So I'm going to select that color, maybe choose a slightly darker version of it just to add some shading to it. Because I imagine it's kind of a rounded surface. So I'm just kind of adding a little bit of shadow, just like I did for the main bear shape here. And then same thing with the left side, I'll add a little bit of a lighter color just to kind of give it some form. Then I'm going to find this layer here and then create a layer right above it and turn it into a clipping mask. Then we can go ahead and actually let me do a slightly smaller version of this brush here. Just go ahead and rough in some shading on the right side. And then I'll select that color again Let's go ahead and choose a brighter version for the left side. And maybe to help blend this in a little bit with the main bear shape, maybe I can darken the whole outside a little bit more. Let me choose kind of a darker color here. Let me do this on a new layer that's also a clipping mask, just in case I want to change it. So I'm imagining maybe I just kind of darken around the outside here. I think it'll just help it sit in a little bit better and not seem like it's floating on top as much. Maybe we can erase just a little bit on the left side here. I think that's feeling pretty good. So if we turn that on and off, I think it helps a little bit. Let's go ahead and touch up the eyes a little bit right now. So we can just go ahead and create a highlight right on top of the eyes. So I'll create a layer right above it. I'm just going to choose pure white. And then I can go ahead and choose, and then I can go ahead and go back to one of our brushes here. I think the script brush might work here. So just create a little dot in the eye there. I'm going to go ahead and use Gaussian blur under the adjustments layer. Just a touch, just to soften it a little bit. I think that feels pretty good. So I can go ahead and duplicate this highlight and now drag it over. And again, we'll do snapping magnetics just to bring it perfectly over. There we go. And then just to suggest a little bit of form to this eye, I'm going to add a little bit of lightness right underneath of it, as if there's kind of like a little curvature to the shape. And then maybe to make it seem kind of like an eye socket, I can add some shading right above this, some darker shading, to make it seem like there's a little bit of a lip here. Like it goes in and then you hit the eye. So right beneath the eyes, I can go ahead and create a new layer. And I'll just select any color for the bear and then choose kind of just a brighter version of it. I'm going to go back to my texture brush. Choose pretty small size here. And just with a really light pressure, I'm going to go ahead and just mock in some lighter part there. I'm going to do the same for the other eye. And then I'm going to do a little bit of a darker color for right above. Let me increase my brush size a little bit. Let's see how that's looking. So that's feeling pretty good. Let me maybe adjust the opacity of this, maybe make it a little bit less apparent. Maybe I'll bring it down to like 75%. And it just helps add a little bit of depth. And then I'm thinking maybe the nose here might kind of stick out a little bit. There's maybe like a little ledge here that's catching a little bit of extra light. So I'm going to go ahead and choose my lighter color here and go back to my bear shading. So here's all my clipping masks for my bear layer. So I'll go ahead and create another one right on top. So this is our third clipping layer for our bear shading. Go back to a larger brush size. I can just really subtly kind of lay in some lighter color here. Kind of gives it some form now, so it seems like maybe this part of the nose sticks out a little bit and it's catching some light. And then maybe like right above the eyebrows here a little bit. Maybe the eyebrows stick out a little bit, so you're going to catch a little bit of light on this ledge. So we can do a smaller brush size. Just do a little bit of lighter color right above the eyebrows. And then maybe it kind of goes in a little bit where the eye is. So the eyebrows stick out, and then you're going to get a ledge kind of underneath here. So maybe you'll get a little bit of shadow underneath the eyebrows. So we can choose our darker colors over here, maybe make it a little bit darker. And just really lightly add in a little bit of darkness here between the eye and the eyebrows. So if we go ahead and turn on and off this shading, you'll see what it does. It just goes from being super flat to adding a little bit of form so you can kind of see what's going on with the shape. And now, since the snout sticks out a little bit, you'd expect it to kind of cast a little bit of shadow here. So the light, again, is coming from the left side. So we're going to get a little shadowing on the brown bear fur right down here. So I have a darker color selected already. And I can just do this on the same layer. Let's put in a little bit of shading down here. And it's good to zoom out every now and then like this to kind of get a better picture of what things are looking like. I think this eyebrow shading is a little bit maybe too intense. So let me find that. And I can just select my soft airbrush eraser. Just really lightly kind of just erase it a tiny bit, make it a little bit less apparent. And then maybe this nose here, maybe the top of it can go actually a little bit brown instead of just being pure black. So let me find my nose, create a layer right above, do a clipping mask, and go back to my texture brush. And I'm just going to choose kind of a dark brown color here. Just super dark brown. Just kind of for the very top here. It's pretty much hard to tell, but if I turn this on and off, it just gives a little bit of shape to it. And then since the nose is going to be kind of shiny, I'm going to go ahead and create a new clipping mask layer above that. And just choose pure white. And I'm just going to stick with this texture brush and just add a little highlight here, kind of on the left side. I think that works okay. And then maybe for this mouth, since the mouth kind of goes in where it's black, I'd imagine there's kind of this little ledge here on the bottom that's probably going to catch some light. So I think it'll help add some depth if I add a little bit of white right underneath the mouth. And same thing with kind of the right side of this shape here. If the light's coming from this way, it might catch a little ledge here and give us a little bit of a highlight. So I'll go ahead and choose this light color. Let's go a little bit lighter than that. And we have our texture brush, very small size. And then we're going to find this shape here. And then find all the clipping mask layers and just create one right on top of those. Clipping mask. And we can just really subtly kind of paint in some lighter color here. Maybe it's a little too intense. We can always go in and erase it just a little bit, just with a really light pressure. But I think it does help give us a little bit of depth. It's really subtle, but you can kind of see the difference here. And then also this black part of the nose here will probably cast a little bit of a shadow on this lighter brown area. So I'll go ahead and create another layer here, also a clipping mask. And just kind of choose the darker version of this. Maybe make it even a little bit darker, more saturated. Kind of a larger texture brush size here. And we can just really subtly kind of paint a little bit of shadow here. So let's go ahead and do the ears next. So I can paint this pretty much the same way that I did the main bear shape. I can just do kind of our lighter color here. And again, we'll go ahead and find our ear shape, which is right here. And then we'll select it, create a new layer right above it, turn it into a clipping mask. We can just kind of shade the outside of here, maybe make it a little bit brighter. You just want to make it seem like it's catching a little bit of light from the left side. And same thing with this one. And I think because of our shading on the main bear shape, it's kind of making it look like the ear is a little bit darker on this side than it is on this side. So to make up for that, I'm just going to go ahead and choose kind of a darker color and paint that in here on this right ear, just to make it a little bit darker here. And then for the inside pink part of this ear, we can go ahead and select that color and then just choose kind of a slightly darker, more saturated version of it to kind of shade on the interior part. So the closer it is to the bear, kind of the more dark it's going to be. Makes it seem like it's kind of going in. So I'll find that pink circle layer. Again, we'll create a clipping mask. I can just go ahead and actually let me choose a slightly more saturated color here. I think that works. Maybe I went a little too dark over here. So again, we can always just go in and erase a little bit. So let's go ahead and do some of the shading on the shirt right now. So the first thing I want to do is go ahead and add some drop shadow here from the collar onto the main part of the shirt. So let me bring back my sketch layer here, just so I can see where the bottom of my collar roughly was. I'm going to make it less opaque. And now I'm going to find my main shirt layer here. And I'll go ahead and create a layer right above it, a clipping mask. And we can just choose this gray and kind of choose an even darker version of it. And then with our texture brush at a very small size, we can go ahead and just rough in some kind of drop shadow here. And again, we can kind of draw it and then hold down at the very end. And then do edit shape, just to kind of tweak the placement a little bit. It's really subtle, but let me go ahead and hide my sketch just so we can see it a little bit better. So it just gives us a little bit of this drop shadow here, just for that separation. And then, since it's a collar, I want to add maybe some kind of little stripy pattern to it that's really subtle. So I'll find that collar layer and do a clipping mask for that. And I'll go ahead and choose our monoline brush. I'm just going to create some stripes here. Doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to actually lower the opacity of this quite a lot. It's just going to be really subtle. So let me zoom in. I'm just going to actually blur it a little bit using Gaussian blur. And then I'm going to bring the opacity way down just so it's super subtle, kind of like that. And then let's focus on the main part of the shirt here. So we have this kind of gray color, and since the light's hitting from over here, I want the left side to be basically pure white. So I'm going to shade that in using my texture brush. And then I'm going to kind of try to darken the right side a bit, put it into shadow, and maybe do a little bit of a rim light like we did with the bear. So let's choose pure white and get a nice big size texture brush. And then we'll go ahead and find our main shirt. So beneath the blue stripes and also beneath that drop shadow from the collar, I'm going to create a clipping mask layer. And then we can go ahead in here and just start shading pure white and slowly do less and less pressure as we work over. And then I'll do a bit of a darker version of this gray just for the right side. And then again, we'll go back to white, kind of add in our rim light here. So that's feeling pretty good to me. And then we can do the same for the collar. We're going to just treat it the exact same way. So we'll find our collar, and then maybe underneath these little stripes that we put in, we'll create a layer. Go ahead and add some shading here. And then some darker shading. And then our rim light. And then we can go ahead and do these blue stripes next. So again, since the light's coming from over here, I'm going to go ahead and do a lighter version of the blue on the left, and then we'll get a bit darker and then add in our rim light. So let's choose that blue color and find the blue stripes. And now since the blue stripes are already a clipping mask layer, we can't do a clipping mask of that. But what we can do is turn this into an alpha lock, which means it's still a clipping mask and everything, but we can paint on this, and now it's going to stay within it. The only issue with this is that it's going to be baked into this layer. So what I like to do is actually create a duplicate version and hide the original. That way I can always go back to it if I mess up. So we have this blue stripe layer now with alpha lock turned on. And again, we're going to just choose the blue color and then come in and just choose a slightly brighter version of that, a little bit more toward white. We can shade this in. And then a slightly darker version of this blue. And then we go back to kind of a brighter blue for this rim light. That's feeling pretty good to me. And then I want to create a little bit of shadow on the bear itself from the shirt, like the shirt's casting a little bit of shadow onto the bear. So let me go ahead and choose kind of the darker color here. Maybe we go even a bit darker. And I'm going to come to, again, my main bear layer, create a clipping mask on top of everything. I can turn this to multiply mode just because I want to darken everything that's there already. I don't want to kind of replace everything. We can just start roughing in kind of a shadow. It's okay if it sticks out a little bit too much because we can always move it down since it's on its own layer. So let's go ahead and bring the opacity down maybe halfway. And then, like I said, kind of using the transformation tool, we could scoot it down just a little bit. Let's turn snapping off. So it's subtle. If I turn it on and off, you can see here. But I think it does help give a little bit of depth. Now looking at this, I think I'm going to add a little bit of fur detail maybe to this bear. Not actual fur, but I think I want to just suggest kind of the idea of it in a stylized way. So one way we can do that is maybe we come to the main shape here. And kind of what I was thinking is if we choose maybe a brush like our script brush, we could select the same color as our base here. So we're going to hide all the clipping masks on our main shape here and just color select this. So we have this color selected. And now if we paint on this layer, we're basically just extending it out, right? And if we turn on our clipping mask layers, they'll still be maintained. So we're just extending the shape a little bit. And I was thinking maybe we can add kind of some fur like this, kind of sticking out. And now I don't really want to completely mess up this layer. I want something to go back to. So again, I can just create a duplicate of this, hide the original, and now I can paint on this new one. And if I mess up, I can always go back. So let's go ahead and just add in some subtle suggestion of fur here. Maybe not everywhere, but just every now and then. We'll just do a little bit. Something like that's kind of nice, I think. A little stylized. Let's do the same for the other side. And then we can kind of do the top of the head here. Just adds a little bit nicer detail. And then we could even add in a little bit of different indication of fur with some like lines. So we can just go ahead and do this on top of everything. Maybe we just want to do some lines here. And we're gonna change the opacity of this in a second, but just something to kind of indicate fur direction here. Do the same for the other side. Now we can go ahead and mess with kind of the color modes and the opacity. Maybe I do something like hard light for this, and to see the effect we really want to bring the opacity way down. You can just really see how subtle this is. It's barely noticeable. And maybe we do kind of a dark version of this, kind of in the same vein, just really subtle. So one way we could do this is just duplicate what we have, and then we can go to transform and flip it horizontally. Kind of move it around a little bit, offset it. And now we can just change the blending mode on this, maybe to something like linear burn. And we can just tap on our layer here and do invert. So now we have a darker version of it. And let's just bring the opacity still way down. I think the whites over here are a little bit too bright, so we can come back to that white layer, grab a soft eraser, and just really lightly go over it. That's feeling pretty good. One thing I kind of like to do sometimes too is add in rosy cheeks on some characters. So what we can do is just kind of select a pinkish color. So we can create a layer that sits right above the main bear shape in all of its clipping mask layers. And it's just a regular layer, not a clipping mask. And we can go ahead and just rough in kind of some rosy cheeks here. That's kind of nice. And now maybe to add in some slight indication of fur around the ear area, we can maybe erase into this pink part using the same method we did for the fur on the outside here. So we can grab an eraser tool and we'll choose our script brush. Then we can find the pink shape of those ears. And now I want to be able to go back to this if I mess it up again, so I'll just create a duplicate, hide the original. Just create some slight indication of fur. Maybe it's a bit too much. And now it's just the time for our final touches. So I think I want to maybe darken the drop shadow underneath this collar a little bit. So let me go ahead and find that. And one thing I can do is just change this to multiply, and then I can duplicate it and just kind of layer on top of itself a little bit. I'm going to blur that a little bit. And there we go. And I think I'm pretty happy with this, so I'd call this finished now. Hopefully you had fun following along. And if you want to go ahead and post your version of it to Instagram and tag me, I'll be happy to repost it. I'd love to see what you guys create. And also take liberties. You can go ahead and change things, maybe throw a hat on them, different kind of shirt, different colors. I'd love to see what kind of stuff you guys create. All right, thanks for watching.